Good day and welcome to Behind the Scenes. This is for artists and creatives, and it's good to have you here. This week, the topic is reinventing yourself, and this is just an inspiration that I've received from my study at Lee Krasner. And Lee Krasner was the wife of artist Jackson Pollock, and I've been really excited about just knowing more about her as an artist and her life and her journey, what she has to offer, and I think for each of us she would speak to something different. But overall, one of the things that I really admire about her is um, her ability to continue reinventing herself. Not only that was a big part of her life, but she spoke of that often. I've listened to several videos on YouTube, and of course some of the different writers that have written about her and spent time with people who spent time with her. And so yeah, Lee Krasner, she had a faith that just really, I think, was foundational for her life. It's a place she came back to over and over again, and it's just neat to have someone add to our life. And I know that as I develop myself as an artist and of course go down my own little bunny trails, my journey is my journey. And so I follow a lot of bunny trails. I love to study out things and be led places, because I feel like it wakes up parts of me that are supposed to be awake, and it lights me up and it keeps me excited and stirs my curiosity up. It actually encourages me to go back to the canvas or wherever and just continue. So I can begin by saying that I've had just a blessed life as far as people coming into my life, sewing into my life in ways that were just life-giving. And one of those women would remind me often that we don't wake up on a good day and decide to grow up. And growing up is what we do when life happens. So as a woman or a mother, as an artist, any particular facet of myself, or my being, I'm continually evolving. And the pieces behind me speak this. Each of them have, I've been painting, let's see, in the last 6 weeks particularly, and I only know that because I went back in my journal, but this shift of taking something from my past and doing something new with it has been coming up. And I think that's always going on. It's not like all of a sudden it started happening. It's just that my awareness to what was going on, I had an awakening there. So once again, I had a new experience with some old things, and it's exciting. It really is. I think to just all of the ways that I'm encouraged by and inspired by certain people, takes me to a new experience with myself. So I'm still who I was before, but I'm bringing that into the new experience. So there's no way of getting rid of what was. And I think that's important too, because sometimes, I will resist growth because I don't want to lose what I'm enjoying at this moment. It's kind of like getting towards the end of a book you're reading and you don't want it to end. You want to always be in that book, but there's another one, and so we keep moving forward. And I think our flesh wants to be comfortable and know what's going on. So, I think it's fascinating the way that we can live out of the now and keep moving forward. So anyhow, for those of you who are watching, I just want to check over here to see if there's any questions. I want to know if you can hear me and see me. Let me know. That would be great. Let me me find this. Here we go. Going to the group. Let's see. And let's see. All right. Okay, I don't see any comments that you can't hear or see, so that's great. So anyhow, so yes, the pieces behind me were from something before. This piece over here, I spoke a little bit of, and I talked about it last week, and so it's being reinvented. What happened is I took a painting that I had painted, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, and I had a beautiful experience with that painting, and so when I looked at that painting today, it didn't do for me what it did for me then. Now, it didn't mean that all of that, the essence of my experience, was in that painting. So it was important to me because that was an important painting. But I was challenged to take that painting and collage paint with it and bring it up to, in this now, what could that experience, what could the essence of that painting, what can I pull from that, things that are still working, and collage that into what's going on now. And it's fascinating. It really is, because I had absolutely no idea what to expect. I just knew that I was unstapling and removing a painting from stretch bars. I began tearing it and shredding it and cutting it. And the next thing was to start collaging it onto a fresh canvas. And so that was difficult because I wanted, my head was trying to, I think I don't know if it was my head or my heart or what it was, but I know what was happening. I was fighting, trying to make something pretty or symmetrical or have beautiful composition. I was fighting that because the idea of the exercise was not about doing that. It was about simply laying those pieces on the canvas and letting them find their own space. And so the idea was not to think it through, not to overthink it, but just to begin putting the Mod Podge on the collage pieces and start placing them on as I was led. Okay, that's it. No thinking, just do. And so anyway, that was very interesting. And all I kept saying is that this is practice. No one's ever going to have to see this. This is only for me. And that's the kind of expectation I had, which was I was reducing it to like the irreducible minimum. This was just for me. And if it's just for me, if it's just between me and like my inner guide, that spirit that lives inside of me, I can do that. So it became fun and it became exciting. And I'm going to share more about that process. In fact, it was so impactful. I'm creating a class for that. So I will be posting that, and I'm going to offer that free because it was such a transforming experience for me, taking frustrations that I was having currently and bringing it into a freedom. And so that's one of the announcements I wanted to make today, was that I will be uploading that shortly. I'm just in the end stages of getting that ready, but I want to offer that to you. And I'm excited about some of you taking that. As many of you, I hope many of you take advantage of that free class and see what kinds of frustrations you can move in, get freedom from. So that's that. And the painting over here, that was just a painting that I had started again years ago. And I was going through my canvases one weekend. I had begun working with my line work again and painting and having so much fun with that. I thought, what else can I put lines on? What else can I work on? And I found that canvas, and it just was like partially painted. So I began working on top of that. So those became symbolic, so to speak, of, what was going on inside of me that I wasn't even aware of at the time. Now, fast forward 2 or 3 weeks, and I became aware that I was really starting to approach the canvas differently. I was speaking with other artists and creatives differently. I was beginning to shift as far as my mindset and move into something that was, all I can say is the freedom. I felt like I was not striving. Like I don't need to convince anybody or prove anything. That's how I'm feeling right now. And and I can do that because once again, I've let go of the need to bring about a result. I don't know what my words are going to say to you. I don't even know if you're going to respond in the same way I do. However, I feel like if you're listening, there's something here for you. And so that's exciting. And I just trust and believe that process. So the freedom I'm experiencing is allowing me just to be bold, just to let me take things that were once something and move on to something else. And so as I continue, I'm realizing that I started writing up some new goals I have, what I would like to bring to this group, and how I can use my time and balance myself between the creative coaching and this free group coaching group. And that's really what this group is all about. And if you're not quite sure, if you stumbled upon the group and you're not quite sure what it's all about, that's really what it's about. It's an opportunity to get free creative coaching in the group. And typically, what I'll expect is that I would be coaching you on whatever I'm bringing to the group. However, there's going to be opportunities for you to bring your own questions and look for inspiration from me as well as the others in the group. And that's where the momentum begins. And I just encourage you to use the group. So beginning in April, I will be presenting an art project every month. I know that in the past, I do projects I might do like a four-week series or another series, and that's been great. And I still will go with my flow, and I will reinvent this group and what we're doing in the group as I go, because I can only do, when I do what's right for me, it's usually right for others. And so that's what I have to remember. That's the other principle I'm believing as I move forward in this group. And there have been seasons where I have been vacillating so much, trying to figure out what it is you need, how to create some engagement. And the reason I want engagement is so I can find out what you need. And there just came a time when I figured out, like, wow, I'm not going to sit here and figure out what somebody else needs. I am just going to share what's going on with me. And that's how this behind the scenes live was born, because I figured, let me just share what's going on with me. And I share it with the hope that perhaps it resonates with you in some fashion and encourages you. So I will be presenting a project monthly and with a demo, and then we'll just do some follow-up as the weeks go through the rest of the month and see how that lays out. I will continue the behind the scenes live on Friday afternoons as I review my week and prepare my studio for the following week. I'll share, and sometimes I'll even do some other demos that you can implement and redirect things, perhaps tweak an existing project or help inspire or supercharge your creativity, no matter what you're working on. So take advantages of the resources that I offer, implement what you see, and you'll find yourself beginning to create more regularly. You'll turn yourself toward, or you'll tune in to more and more inspiration that's just all around you. And then you're going to be able to create the life and work you want. That's what the inspiration does for me. That's what these prompts that I get from a few other people in my life helped to kind of fine tune and give me some clarity that I need or I'm looking for. And a lot of times I don't even know I'm receiving it. So this is also where you can post your questions. And I'll be challenging you along the way to take some simple steps to get on or to stay on track so that I can keep you creating. So if you're like me and in this time of Corona, you're making all kinds of adjustments and changes, you're compromising. So I thought we'd take some time out today and make an art journaling page expressing how we are coming to accept what is and live out of that place. So I know for me personally, over particularly the last 6 years, I've experienced a lot of major life changes and losses, and changes where my life did not go back to the way it was. I have the same home. I'm still married. That core bit, but some major things happened. And in spite of all of that, my life got better each time. And it doesn't make sense because I suspect that once again, having worked through, becoming into that place of acceptance and being willing to grow through this process, my life is going to get better once again, in spite of the coronavirus. So let me do this as a transition into our project. Let me give you a quote from Lee Krasner. And she said, "I'm never free of the past. I have made it crystal clear that I believe that the past is part of the present, which becomes a part of the future." So it's a beautiful story for me that, just like what I was saying at the beginning, we do set aside what we know. We set aside our experience, what we have maybe, and we open ourselves up to something new. And soon we're tracking along and we realize that we still have some familiar with us. We've got some new, and we're headed still in the right direction. So this whole art journey is all about progress, not perfection. It's about process and layers and learning how to live fearlessly in those times, because we know that it's going to keep changing. So the fearlessly is not about not being fearful or not having an emotion, but more or less just being encouraged that in spite of what's going on, we have hope that this too shall pass, and it's going to change us, and our life is going to be better in spite of it. So right now I'm going to shift things a little bit. We're going to begin getting ready for a project. I want to share with you a little bit about, just along the way as I show you the demo steps. And we're going to really focus on uncovering, discovering, and recovering. Okay, so we're going to uncover some things, we're going to discover some things, and we're going to recover. And that's part of my process in like taking a look of and see what's blocking me. What's when I say uncover, like I physically go through stacks and piles, and you can't see it right now. I kind of tidied up the space that you're looking at. But yeah, my week, I just work creatively, and at the end of the week I have these stacks and piles, and I go through them, and it's almost like I'm reminiscing and feeling again what I experienced through the week. And in that, I bring the essence of that, and some of the things I kind of discover new things, and I remember things, and then I begin to recover, which what that means for me is I'm really using it to be in my now. I'm recovering, like almost it helps me to be encouraged and be right where I'm at. I think it's better for me to show you that than to talk to you about it. Some things I just can't say like they are. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love this art process, because color, sound, motion, texture, that's like a language that talks and it speaks for me. It expresses what I have a hard time putting into words. So rather than not have that experience, I use my art and creativity to have the experience. And then that, is good for me. That's good self-care. So anyhow, so the journal prompt is, what are you reinventing about yourself? Okay, in this time, what is it that you're seeing that you're doing differently? Maybe you're taking an activity or whatever that you used to do, but it's new. You got a new twist going on with it. It can't be the same because of what's going on. I don't know what that is for you, but what I'd like you to do is to take a few minutes. I'd like you to think about that. And if you'd like, just join me in this process. So let me tell you a little bit about what you're going to experience, what we're going to do, and then we'll begin. So what I had talked about, and I posted a supply list in the group. And if you don't have that or you did not see the post, I'm going to go over that real quick with you. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn my camera down to my work area so that you can see, and I'm just going to talk and show you, because to me, that works really well. So this is where we're at, my workspace. Okay. All right. So I have shown you these before, and I'm just having a great time with them. So for those of you who haven't been following me, I began making these journal pages myself. Okay. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. I talked to you a little bit about it before, but I want to hit on it again because I really feel like it's a great tool. I keep using them, and I'm excited about the journaling book that I'm making. So I'll just show you a few things. This was just an exercise I was inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe. You know, she took those objects and she looked at them really up close. And so I looked at some succulents in the backyard in my garden, and I took a picture, and I wanted to paint that as an expression of reminding myself to stop and look close at things. You know, things aren't always what they seem. And when we look a little closer, if we will gain more and more. And so that's a great reminder for me. This is also inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe, and she had a whole series of paintings where she included bones and the sky. It was in her on her property in New Mexico. She was very inspiring, and so to do an exercise to represent that, I don't have any bones, but being in South Florida, I have shells, and being a native Floridian, I do have lots of shells from beach walks and things like that. So I took a shell with a hole in it because a lot of her the bones would be shown in the composition as such that you could see blue sky through it. So anyway, this was my exercise, and I did some line work, and I'm going to do some of that line work today so you can see me actually applying it. But anyway, so this is another journal page. So I've done some other ones. This is a fun one where I have an overlapping little fabric. So there's different things that you can do with it to paint or collage, whatever it is that you want to do. Each of these has a significant meaning to me, and I'm compiling them so that I can create a journal book. So this one was inspired by Frida Calho. And and so with this one, again, I had an experience. Oftentimes in her paintings, she would paint light and dark. And so it had some significance to me. So I painted something to represent that. So anyhow, okay, so this is a journaling page, and I have some pre-made to talk about, but then we're going to make one together. So essentially it's a piece of cardstock. Okay. And we Mod Podge some fabric onto it. And then I've primed it with a white paint. And so it's ready to work on. If you notice, this side has more fabric than the other sides. And the reason I left it longer is this side is going to be used for binding. And next month, we're going to bind journal pages. So I encourage you to play around with this and make up some journal pages for yourself. And get a handful of pages together so that when you bind it, you've got a nice little booklet. So you don't have to do a big thick journal, but even a booklet would do with, say, 6 pages or so. And we'll talk about how to do that next month. But anyhow, so that's a real simple journal page. Now, this particular version, what I did is I went ahead and finished the sides, okay, by folding them under. You'll see I still have the nice, width here for binding. And on the back, I just glued cardstock. That's another way you can do this. Now, you see it's got some, it's not perfect. It's a little wonky, okay? And so I'm just going to let that kind of be. I've got some different ideas as to what I want to do with these. And so each of these is is one-sided. All right. And so what I was thinking is possibly doing some journaling on the other side, or I have an art journal that I do write down my thoughts, like little words or bunny trails, things that I go on. So I may just make some copies of those and go ahead and use this cardstock backed one to go ahead and add them to the back side. That's one possibility. We'll see. See, I don't have to know anything final until I start to finish the project. So we don't have to decide that yet, but you can begin working on the fronts of the journal. So today I've got my little project under here. What I wanted to do is show you how to make a journal page, and then we will get working. I've got some pieces here that I'm going to put together a journal page and show you a few techniques and encourage you so that you get hopping and make a journal page as well. So anyhow, so yes, I have a piece of cardstock. You can use any color if you want. I've got white, and I've got a piece of muslin fabric. Now, with the other pieces, I press them so there's no wrinkles. As I was doing this today, I thought, I like to kind of grunge things up. I don't like things real perfect. So in this particular one, I did not press it. Okay. I thought I'm going to leave this, with all the fold lines and things like that. So if you don't want the lines on your journal page, you can just iron them out. Okay. And you'll be good to go. If you don't mind, if you like kind of a grungy look or not so perfect, then feel free just to use as is. So let me go over the other supplies real quick. We have Mod Podge, and we're going to use a sponge brush. Okay, so you can see I've used this over and over before. It's got lots of different colors. Yeah, I just washed it out with soap and water, and I use it again, especially for Mod Podge or like art journaling. If I were working on a canvas, I would not do this, but there's definitely nothing wrong with reusing those. I'm going to use some scissors to cut my pieces, and I'm going to maybe draw a little bit. So I've got a graphite pencil. I have a white charcoal pencil. The graphite I might use and leave the drawings. The white, a lot of times I will use that to mark up if I'm not sure if I just have an idea. I'm not sure if I want to paint it in or ready to really give it definition yet. So I use white as kind of like a play around testing thing. So anyway, I've got some fast drying glue, and this morning when I was working with it, I noticed that it's getting thick. So I have a tongue depressor, and I will be using that to apply the glue. I've got an old plastic card. This is from a theater, but you can use like an old credit card or any kind of plastic card. And that helps us to spread the glue evenly so that we don't have any bubbles. All right, that's a good handy tool for that. I had mentioned white paint. I've got some cheap, not cheap, but not the high-end white paint for this kind of project. The basics work great, or any kind of brand that you use. You can even use gesso if you want, so that's fine. And then this is what I'll be using for some line work. And this is the fine line applicator that I've been using now for, I don't know, a couple of months and having a lot of fun with it. I've got some Liquid-X Carbon Black fluid paint in here, and that's what I use for my line work. I have black, white, and recently I've started using some of the other colors, but anyhow, those are good. And then paper towel, I've got some wet ones. So that's really all you need. And I will list those again after this for the replay. So for those of you listening, you'll see the list directly in the comments below. And for those of you who are catching it later, you can go back and look at the post in the group and find the information you need. So anyhow, simple. So what I'm going to do is begin by putting some Mod Podge on my paper. I just pour it on. And if I spread it all through the center, and then I can take it from side to side from there. Yeah. You don't have to, I mean, you want to get it as even as possible. And of course, you want to get the edge. But it's not a very time-consuming step. Okay. Okay. Perfect. I'm going to put this in my water. Yeah, if you don't want it to glue to dry in your brush, you just pop that in your water. And also you can take a little wet one right now, just FYI, and remove any glue you have around here so that it does not stick to your paper when it dries. Okay, so you don't want to take too much time, but you do have a little bit of time. All right, so now we're going to put the cloth here. I've got a few little clumps. And we want to make sure that that longer side is on the left-hand side. And once I've got it positioned, I press it down. And I take my credit card and go here. Now, if you see, you've got some little, I've got a few little light spots here where I could use a little bit more product. Just squeeze out a little bit of water here. Use my paper towel. Go back in and put a little Mod Podge. I'm going to use the tongue depressor just to grab a little bit. And I'm going to do this. And good to go. Now, being in South Florida, oh my goodness, in the summertime, when it's really humid, or anytime it's really humid, this might take longer to dry. So we don't want to work too wet, but you're good to go. So that's that. That's how easy breezy this is. Now we set this aside and we let it dry. Now, if you want to scoot a little bit faster, you can use a heat gun. All right, so you can use the heat gun and move things along. I'm just demonstrating it. You'll want to do it a little bit longer, but just for demonstration purposes, I wanted to show you that little trick. And we're going to set this aside to dry. Oh, last step. Before we set it aside to dry, one more thing we're going to do. We're going to prime it. That way, when it dries, everything's drying at the same time. We don't want to split the steps up if we don't have to. So I'm going to rinse out this brush a little bit more. Where the glue is out of it, the adhesive, and we're going to use that for the white paint as well. Okay, once again. All right, now as far as this goes, you don't have to cover every bit of the canvas here. Again, it's a personal choice. I work a little bit distressed. I don't like perfection there unless I'm going to want a total white background and want it really flush. But I'll tell you, it's best for me that I usually make several of these up at a time. So when I get ready to use the journal page, I can always add more paint. But right now, I just want to prime it so that if I get an idea, that all of this is done and I can just get going. So this is one of those projects that you can just sit, and it's almost like a meditation. It's very relaxing just to make lots of blank pages. And there's no pressure. You don't have to have an idea. You just know that, you know what, you want to start journaling on a regular basis. You want to start expressing some of what's going on inside of you. You might want to use these journal pages as declarations for you to go back and say, this is one of my truths that I've realized about me, or this is a goal I have. You might want to do a little mini vision board at some point. So there's so many ways we can use these little pages. So just make a bunch of them up, use it as your quiet time and meditation, and then you'll have them when you're ready to create. So that's how easy it is. You can see everything's done. It's really cool. And you don't have to spend a lot of time or money in making these. So once again, if you want to scoot along a little bit, you can take your heat gun and you can begin to get things setting up pretty quick. Okay. One thing that I do is once it's dry, like I usually don't dry the whole thing with a dryer. I very rarely do. But once it gets dry and it's set, you can take the heat gun and you can go over it again and you can begin to flatten it out. It may curl a little bit. You see how the edges are curling up somewhat? That's pretty normal. And then when it's dry, you can heat gun both sides and you can begin to balance it out so it won't be warped. But that's really how simple it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to one of the prepared pieces that I did earlier today, and I'm going to work on that. So here we go. All right, so I'm going to go with this piece, and I'm going to put this over to dry. And I really don't have any idea of a layout. I was thinking about that earlier today. I was like, should I plan out what I'm going to do, or should I just do something? And I'm going to do something. I haven't planned anything out other than what I would like to use. So this is what I was kind of thinking. This is one of the paintings behind me, and I said that it was part of this process of me, taking something old and reinventing it. And so I thought I would journal about my experience and really take some time to do that. So what I did was I made a few little things that I might use for journaling. We'll see. We shall see. We shall see. So I'm just going to play around a little bit with that. But what I would like to do is I would like to pause right now and kind of just, take a few minutes. You might want to even close your eyes and, breathe for a minute. And just use this as an opportunity to bring to your mind's eye a shift you've made in this last week or 10 days. In this time when we are really scaling everything back, we're social distancing, we are making a lot of changes. Perhaps you're one that is still working. You may be working in the home. You may be on the first line, and you're home, and you're here, and you need to find something to do, to get your mind off of things. Maybe you're home and your family is home, and it's so different because so many people are sharing a space, and yet you're doing your own thing. Whatever your circumstances are, just take a minute and bring to mind something that you've changed. And while at the beginning maybe it was frustrating, just the idea that you had to change. So come really connect with that. Connect with the frustration of that thing. Sometimes it's really a visceral feeling. Sometimes we feel it physically. Sometimes it's really emotionally charged. Or maybe it's really affecting you spiritually. Maybe there's a lot of doubt or fear. And once you've connected with that, then what I'd like you to do is now shift and bring to mind how you've adapted, what it's the compromise been, what have you changed, and really connect with how it feels doing this new thing. So, really coming into what it's like now that you've shifted from that old way of doing something to the new way of doing something. What is that like for you? And just sit with that for a bit. And when you've embraced it, open your eyes. I want you to write a few sentences or words or something about it. Grab a piece of paper, something to write with. And if your journaling pages are here, you can even write on your journaling page. You can take a pencil, a graphite pencil, and you can begin to write a little bit about that experience here. And it doesn't have to be legible. All right, it doesn't. So a lot of times I'll do that, and I'm going to take a minute to write a few things down that are coming to my mind, and then we will continue. Sometimes I really don't have more to say, but I have some energy. And so I might make a few marks on the journal page. And that's what I was doing here. I was just, whatever that means. Sometimes what I will do on the page too is just, if I can't come up with any words, I may just breathe intentionally, like really connect with my breath. And I draw a shape that feels like my inhale and feels like my exhale. So I'm going to do that for a minute or two, and a couple of seconds here, and then we'll continue. But if you're not coming up with anything, just take a minute and put your pencil to paper, and maybe as you inhale, let your pencil make a shape or a mark. And then as you exhale, make another mark. Maybe your exhale you can make a little longer than your inhale. So you get the idea. Now, I don't want to rush you. You can always come back to something. But what we're going to do now is we're going to move into just working the piece a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to begin laying things down, gluing them. Go back and get my disposable brush. And I'm going to get a fresh paper towel over here. Okay, so use a little wet wipe here just to take any glue off of here. Keep me clean. And that helps me to press it down as well. So, all right. Okay. Again, I said I'm not really into perfection here, so I'm not really necessarily making a straight line. You can make it however you'd like. I'm just kind of making my own little design here. But I took that quote that I had spoke out earlier of Lee Krasner's. I really liked that, so I wanted to put that at the bottom of my page, but I'm going to wait. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paint a little bit and begin to see how off her shoulder here. I think what I'll do is create a space, and that's going to be for my journaling, but I'm going to paint this and block that out. And so I want to do a little painting there, and this is kind of taking on, I think I'll kind of continue those wings there as well. That'll be fun. I can use that with the line work there. Okay, So I've got some ideas that are kind of coming to. Well, at the end of the week, it's really a lot of fun because I don't know. I don't want to. It's nice at the end of the week because also too, I've got some leftover paints. And because this project represents my experience of the week, it makes sense for me to use leftover paints. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take some of the leftover paints that I have, and I'm going to use that as the foundation. So I'm going to mix up a little paint, and I don't want this bright color necessarily. So I'm going to take some more of the white. I usually don't work like this either. I work on freezer paper. I like to put paint on freezer paper, or depends if I'm, doing something larger, but because I just keep going that way. All right, so I'm going to take a little bit of this color and place there and begin mixing over here. And I just want a soft version of this color. Kind of similar here. It's a little bit bubblegummy. I think what I'm going to do is put a little orange in there. Just needs to warm it up a bit, and then, I don't know, we'll see. Just kind of going with the flow here. Just don't want it too bubblegummy, I guess. I toned it down some. Maybe made it a little fleshier, which is okay, which is fine. Okay. Nice. Okay, I like that. Now, again, I wrote on the journal page. All right. Everything, every layer is still there. Remember the old, that's the journaling is what was going on, what I got out of the week, what transformations I was making. And so they're there, but I'm creating something new on top of them. And I'm just I use those, that metaphor as a means for transformation. So that's how I move from frustration to freedom. That works for me. It's a quick little way for me to get journaling and prompt myself into my journaling experience. That's often the case, is like you have some time and you don't know what to do. And so, especially now, it's like you finally have some time and you had all those ideas before, but where are they, right? That's because they were ideas that were great for you then. Doesn't always mean they're good for you now. And that's another example of taking something from that, that's no longer serving you and creating something new out of it. So you can take that inspiration and you can use it as your prompt, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be exactly what it was then. So do you see, I tend to kind of scrunch things up a little bit. So I've painted most of this. I want to go back and I want to paint this area the white. So I'm just going to mask that with a little white. And I will do that. I paint a lot of times with my hands, even on canvas. And a lot of times I put paint directly on the canvas like this. I do. I just, sometimes I just feel like it needs to get on there and then move it around from there. So I'm just going to mask this. And if you want, you can include this so it blends in nice, but just take her dress here and down. So now her dress becomes a part of the journaling page, right? And when this dries, it'll be a great surface to journal on because it'll have a nice texture. So it'll be pretty. Pretty, pretty. Isn't that nice? Beautiful. Beautiful. So I'll turn it this way so you can see it. Yeah. So now we're starting to get some, some design and composition put together. Now this is still, this works out well because it's lighter, which is nice. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on. And again, you can see some of the lines underneath of this. That doesn't necessarily bother me. But if you want to cover it up, just go and put another layer of paint here. And it doesn't have to be the same color. Again, it's a good way to kind of grunge things up a little bit and create some texture there and interest so that whatever you put around it or on top of it, it's got some texture. So I do that here. You can do that around as well. And it's starting to come together. So I'm going to take a little bit of Mod Podge. And apply it. Okay, take a little wet one. And if I get paint, because look, I work, my hands are in it, I'm always in paint. It doesn't bother me to get paint on the little elements there. It just kind of helps it to blend in nicely. Okay, remember I said I was going to do some line work here, which I'm going to, but let's take a minute and see if there's any other elements that I want to incorporate. I don't know, I've printed these out. I could actually do this. I think I'm going to do this with my line work. I am. Okay. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go into some line work right now and have fun with that. Now with my line work, I have to think from the top down because once I get working, I don't want to put my hand in the lines. Okay, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to get my other color as well. So I'm going to use some yellow ochre. And like I said, I use a Liquid-X. They're fluid paints. And these are fine applicators. And the fine applicator is like a little needle. And the paint comes out here. So it's it's a way that I like to draw with paint. And it's just another way I can add to the conversation, so to speak, in my own flow. So anyway, I'm done with these paints. I want to kind of clear my space a little bit so I don't have any clutter. I will move this up and I will begin. Now, I want to do something over here in this corner, so I'm going to do that first. And so what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to play around here. See, start my line here. And make my circle. Because I'm left-handed, I work from right to left. Otherwise, see, I think that's too, that's just because I'm just gonna continue here. Let me do a little trial here and start with my little dots. Okay. Then in this design, there's a couple of so relaxing. I'm going to put the top on this. And now we're going to go into some bigger black dots. That's fun. Yeah. And this is where I said I wanted to do some line work here to bring out the wings of that butterfly. Okay. And then down in here. Down, down, down. And it's a nice way to transition the piece. Yeah, I like that. I do. Now, I could use a white line to work with this. I could do that. But I think I'm going to use black. So I'll go over this area just to blend it in. Nice, I like that. Mm-hmm. And this is coming nicely, huh? Yeah. So here we are. So this is beginning to take shape and give us a nice space to do some journaling. And I also want to, let's see, how I'm going, I want to highlight this as well. So I think I will create some outline here for that. So this gives you an idea that you can just kind of create some spaces on your art journaling page. And you don't have to know what goes there. But I think you'll just begin to find your own style emerging. The more you art journal, the more you're going to know what works for you. And you'll begin creating that. And then sometimes new things will come along and start to happen. And it will surprise you. It really will. And that's how this works. It's really a fascinating process. It's nothing that I can really tell you beyond that. It's something that you really want to and need to experience yourself. So just for sake of time, I'm going to just keep it simple with this right now. And I'll probably add to it a little bit. We'll see what happens. But just to give you an idea, you should have a good start for yourself. And so I will be posting a wall of fame in the group shortly. And I want you to continue this. I want you to make some more pages and get together like a little booklet so that next month we can bind them together. And if you use this kind of format, or you can use any kind of journaling page, you may say, making journaling pages is not my thing. And you might just want to get like a mixed media book that you can begin journaling. And that would be fine too. If you need some suggestions for that, there's a few that I like to use that are handy. And you can see how I've kind of just folded the edges around so you get an idea as to the design. I really want to bring some of this blue in and do a few things. So I will work on this a little bit more before I post it. But let me give you an idea as to some of the journaling, the mixed media pages. Any paper or spiral, bound mixed media or watercolor. If you get like 140 pound, and I'm going to shift things back up. I'll shift the camera back up to see you myself. But yeah, you'll want to get 140 weight paper. That's the best thing, weight for you. And that way, no matter what you do, if you use water or if you just work dry or wet, it's going to be good for no matter what you do. Some of the projects will work dry, some we're going to work wet. But the fact is that you can, it's kind of like a little running journal that you can look back and get inspiration from. You can remember, when you go back, you can remember things about yourself, life events or lessons learned or words or certain things that give you encouragement. So it's just a great tool for me. It's good self-care. It's a form of relaxation, kind of collecting myself and getting centered so that I can come into that place of acceptance of what is, and not necessarily saying that we have to be doormats or agree with everything that's going on outside of us, but it is happening. And to get to a place of acceptance, I have found is helpful, because then from that place, I can do what's right for me. Again, if I'm not accepting what it is and I'm busy resisting, then I'm living outside of myself. I'm trying to control or change things outside of me. And that never worked for me very well. So when I realize I'm doing that, I find that this is a wonderful way to collect myself and to get back into that centeredness, that spiritual center, where I can find the acceptance I need and then respond from there. And I'm not reacting any longer. So it's just a great tool for me. I can't wait to see what you've got. You know, maybe you'll want to collect some symbols or stickers, or, you know, whichever way you find, you know, easy and right for you to do some journaling. But I'd love to see your art. And I think it's going to be exciting for you. So take the time, go through the exercise, and let us know how we can help you out. Okay? So enjoy your day. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe, be healthy, and I'll see you next week. All righty. Bye-bye.